Eyal Baruch Levi B from Soul Centered. Thanks for tuning in. I'm here in beautiful Cherry Creek, Colorado, Denver, Colorado. It's a subdivision of Denver where my office is located, and this is just right outside my office. It's an amazing little space. I try and come out here and get connected to my spirit, my soul, my voice whenever I feel disconnected. And I too, like you, feel disconnected from time to time or long periods of time. I want to talk about our voice and what it does mean to find and express our voice, because that's what I do for a living. I, along with my wife Ariella, operate Soul Centered, a center for meaning, spirituality, and healing in the afternoon of life. We counsel people how to find your voice, our voice, and express it in the world. This word voice, I wrote about it last week. I did a video and I believe a blog about it last week, is tied to the word vocation. Vocation is misunderstood. We translate vocation as profession, but that's not what it means. What does it mean? Coming from the Latin vocare, it means voice. Now, Ariella and I guide people in the afternoon of life because I find it is a time ripe with meaning and purpose and possibility if we're willing to re-examine our relationship with our vocation. If vocation is about how you make your money, right, your professional status and expertise and how you show up in the world in that capacity, the morning of life is built for you, because that is what the morning of life is. It's to define ourselves by what we do. Ariella and I just did a podcast this week on the rules of the morning, and one of the rules of the morning is I am what I do. I wasn't just a rabbi for nearly 20 years. It's who I was. It was my identity. It was my voice. And then there came a day when it no longer felt like my voice. And over the past 5 years, as I've transitioned out of the synagogue congregational world as a synagogue rabbi and into the corporate space for 3-4 years and involved with multiple startups, I found my voice in that space. But it was not without growth pains. Trying to pull back from expressing my voice in my profession were an area that I feel like I mastered, starting over, rebuilding myself, rediscovering my voice in multiple startups. I think I was involved in 5 different startups, building them, taking one of those public, then involved in a corporation as the director of corporate social responsibility, rebuilding from scratch, having to figure out my voice, figure out who I am, and the pains all the while of not having that mastery in one area and being a novice. And yet in that process realized that my voice wasn't ever being the rabbi. That was how I expressed it. My voice wasn't in the startups, some of which succeeded, most of which failed. Wasn't in the social equity programs that I was establishing in the cannabis industry, all of which failed. I think it's a deeply flawed enterprise, worthy and needs to be pursued, but the way it's currently structured, it's very difficult. And struggling with my voice all the while, struggling with defining myself as more than what I do. The morning rules, you are what you do. What happens when what you do stumbles and falters and fails? Then are you a failure? And for much of the ride, I felt like a failure. Any of you entrepreneurs who have started a startup, and if it's succeeding, then there probably were 9 versions of it that failed prior. If it's failing, then get in line, because over 90% of startups end up failing. To be an entrepreneur is a study in failure and how to get back up over and over again, and to be passionate about what you're doing, but not so passionate, not so invested that it's everything to you. Because if it is, you over-identify, no different than being a rabbi. Right? That's what I did. It's who I was. It was my identity. And so I counsel people through professional struggle. People who are succeeding oftentimes wildly beyond their wildest imaginations. They're succeeding by all outward standards, but they don't feel the success, or they feel the confusion of being defined by their profession as being their voice when it isn't their voice. Or what happens, I counsel a lot of people later in life who are going through what I call re-inspirement instead of retirement. I hate the word retire. It's tired, literally. To re-inspire, to find your voice and express it in new avenues that isn't the way you're compensated financially, but you're compensated in a lot of different other ways. And so thinking about vocation, especially in the afternoon of life, as something more than our job. Because if it is our job, there's tremendous consequences to saying we are what we do. When that is no longer what we do, you pay a price. When you no longer feel the calling, excuse me, like me, and being a synagogue rabbi, it sends you into a tailspin. There's 1,000 reasons why it's so important to love what you do, to find a profession where you can feel like you're making a contribution and sharing your voice in a deeply meaningful way. And that doesn't mean you have to go do some big profession. Maybe yours is very specific and not what others would define as a way to express their voice. It shouldn't be. It's your voice. However you express it, express it. But make sure as you're going through this journey that you define your voice and find ways to express it that are far bigger and beyond just one little slice of the pie. Because no matter who you are, no matter how good you are at your job, how impressive the work that you do might be, no matter how many accolades people give about you, how high of a pedestal they put you up upon, it is not a way to live our life, to put our voice into one single solitary space. And as the old cliche goes, nobody ever says on their deathbed, I wish I would have spent more time at work. Think about, on your deathbed, who do you want by your side? What do you want them to be saying about you? Do you want them to be talking about, yes, you expressed your voice in your vocation, your profession, and that alone? Or do you want them to talk about a man or a woman who spent their life, especially the afternoon of life, expressing their voice in so much of who they were and all that they did, and their relationships and their hobbies and their passions and their volunteerism and their pursuits, lots of worthy pursuits that are waiting for you to find your voice and to express your voice. So that's it for now. You can learn more about myself and Ariella at mysoulcentered.org. Would be happy to work with you. I offer complimentary consultations for anybody in the afternoon of life. If you're not in the afternoon of life, I love you. God bless you. I'm not your guy. But if you are in the afternoon of life and you're looking to really find your voice and to create a roadmap for your voice, of how to express that voice in all that you do, then I would love to hear from you. Take care. God bless. Shalom, salam, namaste, peace.